Good morning. It's still nice to see a lot of people in real life. So my name is Björn Halleröd, and I will moderate this 2021 ESS MAX IV Summit. And my first task is to ask Darja Isaksson, Director General at Vinnova, and Sven Stafström, Director General at Vetenskapsrådet, to wish you all welcome. And Sven will be somewhere in the digital room here, but I hope he will show up.
I'm here, and I hope that you can hear me. Maybe you can give me a sign that it works.
It really works. We see you very well.
It works. Great, great.
It feels a bit like a Eurovision, but welcome.
So a warm welcome to all of you. Some sitting there at Norrlands Nation in Uppsala, some participating via internet. Of course, it's always somewhat of a challenge to do it in this mixed way, but I'm sure we will manage with this meeting. We have experts taking care of us, and I must say that really would have liked to be with you. That was my plan, but I have some kind of small illness, so I better stay away from people today. And I must say also that I was looking at this very nice picture before the meeting starting, the picture of ESS and MAX IV, and in particular with the ESS, if we go back 2 years ago when we last met, it didn't look like that. So many things have happened there, and in particular inside the buildings at ESS, and I'm sure we will hear more about that. That will be really exciting. But the main aim of today's summit is to discuss the Swedish usage of ESS and MAX IV. These two infrastructures, each of them offer unique capabilities for excellent science and innovation. And I think we should be really proud of hosting them in Sweden. If we look at them together, they offer unprecedented possibilities, but clearly we have to put a lot of effort to make sure that these possibilities will be exploited to their full potential. And all of us present at this meeting and other people as well can contribute. I like to emphasize this, that it's really something that we have to do together. And furthermore, I would also like to emphasize that it's not only about the technical aspects of these facilities. It's about people also, and what people can create together. And we have already seen a number of exciting ventures taking place around MAX IV and ESS. And it's obvious that large-scale infrastructure act as some kind of magnet for people interested in novel technologies and their use for a sustainable future. And personally, I find it particularly interesting and inspiring to see all these initiatives based on collaboration between academia and industry. And speaking about collaboration, what the facilities can offer academia and industry has also led to a closer collaboration between Vetenskapsrådet and Vinnova. And I'm very happy that we have been able to set up a common ESS MAX IV office based on the directives given by the government. This is really important, I think, for everybody. But also, I'm hopeful that this can lead to further common endeavors to link science and innovation, which I think is extremely important for Sweden. So, why do we meet like this? There are, of course, several reasons for that. Just to meet and learn to know each other is, of course, one important reason. I also hope that we will learn new things about what goes on. I'm sure that we will learn new things about what goes on at the facilities and also at VR and Vinnova. But in particular, there is a focus today of all the exciting industrial initiatives that have started because of ESS and MAX IV, and I'm really looking forward to hear about that as well. We should also discuss what should be done in order to make sure that the possibilities that ESS and MAX IV offer are taken care of. And as I mentioned before, all of us can take part in these activities to make sure that these possibilities are fully obtained. And also, you can help us, in particular the ESS MAX IV office, to come up with ideas for future activities and also to identify gaps and bottlenecks. So with that, once again, welcome, and Darja, please take over.
Okay, so here's the short version, here. And the longer version would be something like this. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Wonderful to finally have a chance to meet also in person, although welcome all of you. And I'm sure that we're all delighted to have this chance to meet and discuss. Not only to meet and learn, but actually we're here to actively strengthen our common ability to make a difference as a big science nation built on collaboration and co-creation. So I'm also very pleased about the collaboration that we can have with Vetenskapsrådet, but I'm even more pleased about the collaborations that we see all of you representing here today. So we know that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we will touch on that today, for instance, in relation to our shared strategy, implementation plan, government mission, designed to increase our capacity for societal impact with these very important resources. But we will also get a chance to look into the results that has been the results of work. Results where we see industry and research partners working together, understanding even better how these facilities can be used, both MAX IV as well as international facilities. We see how that results in more advanced experiments on the user side. We see that it results in renewed research collaborations. We see how it results in a deeper understanding and awareness of how possibilities can be created, how these industrial needs, how we can adjust the facilities to actually increase our ability, create new opportunities for impact. And we also see an increase in the strengthened capacity to also support new users in Sweden and in the world. And I think all of these results are applaudable, exactly what we were hoping for, and I'm really looking forward to dive into deeper discussions. So I just want to finish off with saying thank you all for all your work up until this day, and let's have a really fruitful day of understanding how we can continue this and build an even stronger big science nation together in the years to come. So welcome all, and thank you.
Thank you, Darja and Sven, for this introduction and keeping the eye on the bigger picture. So now we will continue with the program. I just want to inform you that after each session, it will be possible for you to ask questions, and we will hand around the microphone here among the audience to do that. And for those of you who are present on digital media, you can use the Menti facility to write your questions, and we will have them here, and we will ask them if it's possible. Now, we will have time for very few questions, because we have a very tight schedule. So even if you are in the audience, you can write your questions, and we will collect them and so on, and we will have them in a kind of a catalog after the meeting. So with that said, I want to welcome our first guest, Ian McNulty from the MAX IV laboratory, to give a status update on the facility.
Thank you very much, Björn, and good morning, everyone. It's an honor to have a chance to share my thoughts, a few thoughts today about opportunities for research, industrial and academic, with a very bright light at MAX IV. If I could have our first slide. So it's clear, I think, to everyone that the world and humanity face enormous challenges going forward. These are becoming ever more apparent, from rising seas to the warming planet, to raging forest fires across many different countries, nations, cities, and our beloved forests. These are just some of the major challenges ahead of us. And to attack these, a diverse range of very powerful, and I would argue some of the biggest tools we have are needed to make a hope of making a dent in solving these problems. Medicine is another area where we have clear challenges. This past year and a half to 2 years has obviously illustrated that very well, but that's just one of them ahead of us. Once again, diverse and powerful tools offer us the best hope of making a progress against these. MAX IV, as you know very well, is situated in Lund, next to ESS, and these are Sweden's two brightest lights for research with the world to carry out this research in a way that will benefit society. MAX IV is the so-called first diffraction-limited light source. It's internationally competitive. The access to it is also very easy. There are 16 beamlines that have been funded, some 12 of which are already serving users, 2 more coming online, and 2 more soon to join the fray. With about 1,000 users or researchers coming or sending their samples to MAX IV now, and another 1,000 leading up to 2,000 just in the next year and a half to 2 years, you can see it's a very active and diverse and productive facility. This very busy slide illustrates, and I won't point to all the details, just the breadth of activities among the 16 ports or beamlines where one can carry out research and do experiments, whether industrial, academic, a blend of the two, and such. You see a 3 GeV ring on your right, on your left side, the 1.5 GeV ring listed in the middle, and these are beamlines located at each of these places, and the linear accelerator in the bottom middle of this section. This research, once again, is quite interdisciplinary: chemical science, physical science, materials science, biological and life science, particularly structural biology. Techniques such as imaging, spectroscopy, scattering, and diffraction are the main tools that we use. Tools for forestry and pharmacology are also on the way. The 4MAX beamline is well underway in construction. This shows the unveiling of the new end station. The pieces that are going in will soon be in place. You see some of the first components there. Also for pharmacological science, particularly structural biology, using the new MicroMax beamline, funded by Novo Nordisk Foundation in Denmark, is well along in construction. You see the end station here. The complex is too big to capture in one photograph, and that will turn on in early 2023 to mid-2023. So users can access MAX IV in 2 major channels. We are discussing others already. The main one is by open access or a peer-reviewed system based on scientific merit. It's free and open to everyone. It's competitive. It's based on the quality and strength of the science and the expected likelihood of impact. But one can also buy time, particularly if you wish to keep the results to oneself, to yourself, from an industrial perspective or otherwise. The proprietary access channel is open, and we welcome that. I will just comment in the last slide here how MAX IV is truly a national user facility, but with an international perspective, visibility, and impact. So I hope you agree with me that this facility is widely regarded, well regarded, widely around the world, and we should have an open outlook toward the world as we make it the best on the planet. I look forward to working with all of you, industrialists, academicians, and everyone in between, to pave the way with this very bright light at MAX IV. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. And Ian will be back on the stage in a short while for taking some questions. But before that, we will hand the floor to Andreas Schreyer, that will give us some insight on the ESS.
Yeah, thank you very much to give me the chance to also talk to you at this ESS MAX IV Summit. It's a fantastic opportunity to align and also to meet in real again. So what I'm showing you here is a bird's view of ESS. As you know, it's an international research facility. Unlike MAX IV, which is a nationally funded research facility, we have 13 member countries funding our construction and in the future operation, with Sweden and Denmark being the joint host countries. And it is actually designed to be the world's most intense neutron source, nothing less than that. So that's really something to deliver on, and we are working hard to do that. Now, neutrons are very similar to X-rays in many ways. The facilities are operated in a very similar way. However, we get complementary information from neutrons than from X-rays. All of this together means that for these reasons, in many places in the world, neutron and X-rays facilities are put next to each other. And that's exactly what happened here. And I think, and you've modestly described MAX IV, I have always admired the fact that this multiband ACMAC technology was developed here, it was pioneered here. You built the first ring, which actually really works well. Show to the world that this works, and now everybody is copying it all over the world. Let's just say that. You should be proud of that. It's really great, right? And next to that, we're building the future world most intense neutron source. So all this together has obviously a fantastic potential to become a really mecca of science with X-rays and neutrons. And we should together here make the best of that. And I personally, I've seen that. I'm not Swedish, so I may say that. I've seen that from the outside happening, this strategic vision and decision to pull this off. And I've always admired that. And that's something else you can really be proud of here in Sweden. And that's actually one reason why I came to join the effort. Right, so MAX IV. So you see ESS here, and we have actually made huge progress also during the pandemic, although it has significantly slowed us down. We have to clearly admit that. So let me explain to you a little bit what you are seeing here. The long thing in the upper right corner, that is the accelerator. It's about 600 meters long. It will be the world's most powerful proton accelerator. That's what you need to make the neutrons. Then in the center, in the big building, that's what we call the target building. There it will hit a rotating tungsten wheel where it then makes neutrons with a spallation process. And around that, you see these big halls. These are the instrument halls where the science happens with 15 instruments. Then below that big building, you see on the lower left-hand side, that's our office building. And next to that, on the right-hand side, you see our new lab building. All of this is now just about finished. The last buildings will be handed over in the next year, and we are frantically installing equipment already, and we've made a lot of progress, and I'll show you some pictures. And then you see the entrance building there with the parking, and there's even our joint tram line, right, which has fantastic public transport connections. Now let's just look inside a little bit. On the left-hand side, those two pictures, you see lots of installation happening in the accelerator building. It's actually very exciting. We are about to power up the non-superconducting, the normal conducting part of the accelerator roughly this week. And then for the first time accelerate protons. So that's a really important milestone for us and shows a lot of progress. On the upper right-hand side, that's a view into the high bay of the target building. And within this roundish hole, that's actually what you see covered there. That's the tank where the target will go. And there's lots of installation happening right now. Right now, they are welding the port blocks to that big vessel where then the instrument will be coupled to. And in the lower right-hand side, that's a view into one of the instrument hall. And I have to tell you, that's actually the smallest of all of them. And you see the tank of one of the first instruments has arrived from one of our in-kind partners, and it will move into its final position just in a very few short time. So lots of stuff is happening as we march on. And similar to Ian, I'm showing you an overview of the instrument suite. It's 15 instruments which are funded and being built by an international collaboration, lots with in-kind collaboration. That's a very important model for building ESS, with in-kind contributions from all member countries being delivered as part of the construction effort. So all of these instruments are international collaborations with, in many cases, a few in-kind partners contributing. Each of these instruments has to be designed to be world-leading once we've reached 2 megawatt power, right? And then together with MAX IV, I think we'll just be fantastic, and we'll cover all the fields of science and contribute jointly into all the challenges you mentioned, Ian. Now I have to say one thing. There's one gap. Johan is here. He knows I have a version of the slides which has flags on it, and there's one flag missing because we don't have any Swedish in-kind contributions yet. But we are working hard on that to actually make that finally happen as well, and we are really, really looking forward to that. So now talking about finishing the facility, let me inform you a little bit about our time scales. Where are we? So as I mentioned, the pandemic has hit us hard because, with all the lockdowns, in-kind partners couldn't deliver as they were supposed to, as it was planned. So we are currently going through what we call a rebaselining, which means we are setting up a new schedule and a new budget because delays also cost money. This is going on right now. We'll have a big schedule review just next month, and then a council decision in December, and then we'll have a new schedule. But I can give you my first best guess what the result may be. And we will probably have our beam on target when we actually produce the first neutrons in early 2025, late 2024, early 2025, somewhere in that time. That should be will be the result, most probably. And then we start user operations about 1.5 years later. So that's end of 2026. We should be starting user operation on at least 3 instruments, because the instrument construction is really going well. We will have quite a few actually operational by that time. And in parallel, then we'll finish the other 15 instruments. And then we reach some kind of steady state, what we call steady state, but that still means we will be adding further instruments. And I know that there is huge interest from Sweden to also join for that, and we are really, really glad about that. So once we are up and running, we will contribute together with MAX IV to all the many challenges which have been nicely explained by Ian, and this is another way of saying the same thing. And actually, we are also inviting our user community to a joint user meeting. There will be a joint user meeting next year, around this time in Lund. We are doing this together with ILL, which is kind of our sister organization, being funded by more or less the same countries in a quite similar way. This is a joint effort oscillating between Grenoble and Lund. Next year, we'll invite everybody to Lund, and I hope to see most of you there next week, in person, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas, and I welcome Ian up to the stage as well, if you have any question. And I noticed that Ian told you that it is the brightest place in Sweden now, Lund. A couple of years ago, I was hosting a S3 meeting, the European Strategic Forum meeting, with delegations from all European countries. Some of the delegation never made it to Lund. It was December 13. It was very hard to convince them that this was the brightest place in Sweden, in the world, at that time. So, do we have any questions for Jan and Andreas? Otherwise, I would start, of course. It's my. You say, if you say where we are today, where are the main collaborative efforts between your organization now, if concretely, and in the future, more of curiosity, how do you see the overlap between the prospective research communities for your facilities? So that was actually 2 questions.
Yes. Should I start? I mean, one thing, as I said, we have the similar challenges since we operate in similar ways. So, for example, user office management software is one thing. We are developing this in close collaboration with MAX IV. That's one thing where we both have a need for something better, and we are doing this in close collaboration. That's one of many things, right? We have a huge helium plant making huge amounts of helium for our accelerator, and you get helium from us for your research purposes. So these are just 2 of many other examples. And our scientists are happy to walk over and use your beamlines because, as I said, it's a complementary research. So our scientists also love to use your beamlines.
Those are just a few, and thank you, Andreas. Yeah. We also have technical collaboration on radiation safety, controls development. Yes. Considering the user office, the concept of developing a joint portal where researchers could plan experiments at both facilities in parallel, back-to-back, sequentially, that take advantage of the complementarity between neutrons and X-rays is one part of our vision. So these are just some of the areas. And finally, I think you asked about the different kinds of research and how they blend together. Yeah. X-rays are very good at looking at medium to heavier elements in the periodic table. Neutrons are spectacular at looking at the lighter elements. But one common area is, of course, magnetism, where one would be interested in the spin of the electron around atoms that contributes to magnetic states. Neutrons are very good, again, for addressing this because of the magnetic moment. X-rays because of their polarization for attacking these kinds of problems. So that's just one example, but there are many others. Yeah.
So I'm very happy that you mentioned, Ian, also that even though MAX IV is a national facility, you have an international outreach, and I mean that's really important that you maintain that and that it actually develops into a facility that blends into the landscape. But do you see any difficulties from the fact that ESS is an international collaboration with its rules and regulations and governance and so on, and MAX IV is a national one? Is the How complicated is that?
In the neutron world, in Europe, we have the same. We have a coexistence of national facilities and the international facilities like ESS and ILL. The funding model is a little different, but on the other, on one hand, for example, many Swedish users also use other national facilities in other countries. They go everywhere, right? So the unspoken deal, in my understanding, between the governments is that if you let our users use your facilities, we will let your users let our facility. And this leads to a fantastic international exchange, which actually makes all facilities thrive, because the best users with the best problems go to the best places to do science. And so I think this actually works very well.
Also to specify a bit, but also the collaboration when it comes to the more practical issues of sharing labs, facilities, and resources and so on. It works well.
Absolutely, yes.
Sometimes there are complications, but perhaps it's a bit like family. The warmth and the diversity of a family working together is what makes it the thing that you look forward to most. From a researcher's perspective, these facilities, much as Andreas described, around the world, as well as the ones we are building and offering to the world here in Sweden, look much the same, not in terms of what they can do, but in terms of how you approach them. So welcoming users to ESS and MAX IV in a similar way, it's less of a concern whether one is internationally funded or more locally funded. It's more the quality of the research and what can be done and how people work together and what they gain from it and how that benefits society that matters.
Working as a family, I don't know if that's comforting and worrying. I have 4 kids, 4 boys.
Then you know.
Okay. Now we have one question from the internet, and then we take one question down here. As you mentioned, open access and proprietary access. How many % is devoted to each access? I think that...
You're an operating facility, maybe Ian, you start.
So, as I formulate an answer, can you say the question again, please? We have a more ambitious model than we're achieving presently with our proprietary access channel. Our policy at present is up to 20% in any one beamline of the total beam time. That's up to 5,000 hours per year per beamline. Is available for proprietary access. Presently, the utilization is more like 1% on average. Our model allows up to 10% on average. We're certainly striving for something like 3 to 5% over the next 3 to 5 years. If we can improve that number, I think we're reaching a very good target and stand a chance of realizing the benefits of engaging industry and vice versa in this very wonderful laboratory. So 10% is probably a ceiling simply because it's a publicly funded institution. We have to find the right balance between open access and proprietary, but any number up to that would be wonderful.
And very one question.
As you pointed out, many research projects would benefit from both photons and neutrons. At the moment, I guess one would have to do separate proposals to different facilities. Are you thinking about some sort of joint access mode for combined project to facilitate the combined use?
A resounding yes.
Before you answer that, we have a similar question, but that is concerned then with industrial involvement and engagement. So it's the same. How do you cooperate around that?
Yes, MAX IV is well ahead of us in being operational. We are not yet operational. So our access modes have not been formally decided yet, but I have many ideas about how to optimize proprietary access in various models. We have projects running to define all that. We are talking about that with MAX IV, and I personally have always been a fan of joint proposals between facilities. And I'm very open to actually discuss that. I think that is really something which should be done, both in the field of science and for proprietary access, because there are many, many cases where it's absolutely obvious that you want to do both in combination. So we are very open to this, but we still have to work on the details. And I think that's one of the obvious things of collaboration when our new DG, who arrives next month, very clearly you already said you want to revive our regular meetings and things like that. I think that's a key topic where we will really get started now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us this picture of your facilities and answers all the tricky questions, answering all the questions. So by this we say thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So our next speaker is Mikaela Rapp, who is the head of the ESS and MAX IV office. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Björn. So I'm here today to give you a report from the Office of ESS and MAX IV to let you know who we are, what we're doing, our mission, and to share some news. So I will start. Let's see if I find my slides. So perhaps not all of you are familiar with what we're doing and who we are. So I will begin by just giving you a brief background. So the office is a result of a government commission to Swedish Research Council and Vinnova to coordinate national efforts towards ESS and MAX IV. And the overall objective with this mission is to maximize the benefit of the facilities for Sweden. So in January this year, we reported a national implementation plan to promote the Swedish use and benefit of ESS and MAX IV. And the purpose of this plan is to outline common goals and to substantiate the actions needed to take us there. And our job is to facilitate and push the movements forward. So Summit is a key part of the implementation process. To move forward, we need to meet. We need to find new people to connect with, to share news, and to hear inspiring stories. But also, we need to collectively identify bottlenecks, gaps in the system, and begin address what is not yet optimal. So the workshops after lunch is an important part of the implementation process, and we really appreciate your contributions. So in addition to coordinate national efforts towards the facilities, the office have 2 additional assignments. We support the Swedish government in ESS host state activities, and we also have a role to stimulate Swedish in-kind contributions to ESS. So I would like to just briefly mention some ongoing activities that the office is involved in right now. So for ESS, for Sweden to mobilize and make best use of the facilities, we need strong strategies from the academy, from institutes, and from industry. And we like to accelerate this work, and how can we do this together? We have also begun to map what the coordination needs are for higher education for ESS and MAX IV users. Here, for example, a Hercules type of school have surfaced as an interesting way forward to strengthen the national education system and network. So we are looking forward to gather more views and insights on these matters today from you through the strategy workshop. So ESS and MAX IV are not only important tools for breakthrough science and to bring solutions to societal challenges, they also contribute to society in other ways. So to substantiate some of these effects, we, in collaboration with Big Science Sweden, have initiated a study on socioeconomic effects of Swedish industry deliveries to ESS. So we're looking forward to see some preliminary news in the middle of November and a full report at the end of the first quarter next year. So as Andreas mentioned, for the past year, due to the COVID pandemic and the resulting rebaselining process at ESS, a lot of our efforts at the office have gone into ESS host state activities that relates to ESS new schedule. So this includes tasks coupled to financing and negotiations with other member states. So I believe that office will continue to have a strong focus for the coming year. So certainly, last but certainly not least, we are very happy to share some news of some major steps forward for our last assignment. In-kind contributions and involvement in the instrument at ESS are a top priority for Sweden. It builds national competence, it strengthens the presence, long-term presence at the facility, and it strengthens Swedish-based neutron research. So in short, in-kind contribution is a very good way to reinforce the investment that Sweden has made in ESS. So far, Sweden has not yet had an in-kind program for ESS. So in this context, I am very pleased to announce that through the Swedish Research Council, we now have the financial means for a Swedish in-kind program for ESS. And that the Swedish Research Council is currently processing applications for instrument pilot studies, Saga and HiBeam. So I know that this we have all been waiting for a long time. So I would like to spend my last minutes to just give you some more detailed information on this hot news. So what will the in-kind program look like? So 150 million SEK will be made available through the Swedish Research Council for a Swedish in-kind program during the years 2021 to 2025 with a 30 million SEK allocated each year. However, it's important to note that the premises for Swedish in-kind contributions are dependent on the new rebaselining process plan at ESS and the associated cost book. So essentially this will be a matchmaking process where Swedish academic partners, sometimes in collaboration with other member states, attempt to match the ESS cost book specifications. So what is then the way forward? For this year, we now have a very short window to find a way for Swedish in-kind right in the midst of an ongoing rebaselining process. So being here in Uppsala today, it feels like a very suitable place to announce that we are discussing with ESS and Uppsala University on the possibility of this year's funding to be used for ongoing accelerator testing activities at the Schreyer laboratory. So as the first Swedish in-kind contribution to ESS. Very happy about that. For the process 2022 and onwards, the Swedish Research Council and ESS intend to give a joint information meeting in the middle of December. And here we will inform about the format of a directed call in next year. So in dialogues with Swedish community, we have identified that a top priority for in-kind contribution are personnel, for example, instrument data scientists. So we will continue to actively work towards finding ways forward in this direction. Also, of highest national interest is that Swedish researchers are substantially involved in an future instrument at ESS. Like Andreas said, we need to put the Swedish flag up in ESS. So in order for this to become a real possibility, extensive feasibility studies are required and the preparations need to start now. So therefore, it's pleasing that the Swedish Research Council is currently processing applications for a directed call of 20 million SEK for instrument pilot studies directed at the Saga and high beam collaborations. And the outcome will be announced in November. So, with this positive news, I would like to finish my presentation and encourage you all to keep in touch with us. And we are all here today, so just grab us if there's something you'd like to know more about. And you can always reach us by mail. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mikaela. So what is the most challenging, interesting question for the near future?
The most challenging? Well, I guess in a more general perspective and as a personal reflection, I guess what I find challenging is perhaps that we are kind of in the middle of a transformation process. So many of the things that we do involves breaking new grounds, finding new solutions, and basically pushing the boundaries.
So, thank you. Any other? Otherwise, we move on. I think we. So thank you very much, and you have all the opportunity to interact with Mikaela, yes. And also we have the office and we have Mikaela. So
please keep in touch.
Not only today.
Thank you.
I hesitate to say forever, but for a long time.
For a long time, maybe forever.
So thank you. Oops. So then I've been asked to give a brief, to say something about the inquiry of the governmental inquiry about the organization and financing of research infrastructure in Sweden. And that report that was presented for the government in mid-August. And I will not give a complete review of the inquiry. I will say something of the relationship to ESS and MAX IV, and then of course I can't have, I will say something about the whole inquiry as well by the end. I also realize I'm not sure when I write down my points here to what degree they actually are in the inquiry, or if they come from all the endless discussion we had in different groups about the inquiry. But I hope I'm largely correct. Now, if you look at the inquiry, MAX IV is mentioned 157 times. ESS is mentioned 25 times. And that points to one of the, I think, problem with the inquiry, and which is not to do with the work they did. It's to the instruction from the government to actually focus on national infrastructure and not international. So obviously it's more related to MAX IV than ESS. But also, as you noticed from the discussion earlier between Ian and Andreas, that also is a very strange thing a way of looking at research infrastructure. It is an integrated system, and in different degrees, but basically in all scientific fields. Now, if you then see what do they say about MAX IV, I think one thing is that they really point out that MAX IV should be a unit at Lund University. There is no suggestion to have a different organizational form. It also means that they want to clarify Lund University's responsibility for the facility and change in the governmental regulation. But I think in practice, it just confirms the situation as it is to do that. The inquiry also have this discussion about national infrastructure and national infrastructure of special interest. National infrastructure of special interest are large infrastructure, expensive, complicated, or infrastructures that have a specific strategic value for Sweden. It's not clearly defined, but it's, I think, absolutely clear that MAX IV is one of them. The inquiry also then suggests that in a number of years' time, a new agency should be formed in Sweden with the responsibility to fund infrastructure of special national interest, hence MAX IV. And I guess, but that's not really clear, that also ESS would be funded by this new agency then. It would be strange elsewhere, I think. But that's not really clear. It's not really clear what it will mean for MAX IV either. So. And I think also another thing that might be seen like a minor thing is that they actually endorse an investigation by Ekonomistyrningsverket and clarified a couple of points from that investigation about the right and possibilities and regulation of user fees. And I think that could be useful for especially for MAX IV. Then ESS is mentioned more in descriptive terms. It's pointed out the Swedish responsibilities. It's pointing out the things that we discussed here, the importance of established Lund as an international hub for advanced research and so on. But there is nothing really about funding of MAX IV, ESS, or coordination or organization of the Swedish engagement as a host for MAX IV. For ESS. But there are some generic discussions as well. And I think one thing they point to, which is really an important thing, is that when we fund and invest in research infrastructure and these big investments, they are long-term, they need a solid base, they need to be treated in a consistent way over a long period of time. So they point out correctly, I think, that for that a political commitment is needed. And that commitment is needed dependent on which government we have. So we need a way to put research infrastructure, which also means research to some degree, more in focus and in the center of the political process. So what they suggest then is that the forskningsberedning, which is a hard word to translate, but I think you could say that it's like a research bill advisory group, which the government puts together every 4 years to help them to prepare the research and innovation bill. So what the inquiry says is then that that group should be permanent, and it should also include not only the academic field and industry and so on, it should also include representatives from the political parties in the parliament, so they will be involved in this process. And I will slightly come back to that later. They also discuss something about how to invest in research infrastructure, and I think they point rightly out that it should be treated as a societal investment, samhällsinvestering, which means that they could be treated separately in the budget. And I think also they point out that the best way of funding big endeavor like this is actually through the state budget, and the state is the one that could borrow money and so on much more cheaper and less expensive than basically all other financial instruments. And I think that's something that is worth thinking of. They also suggest a broadened responsibility for Vetenskapsrådet and RFI to take account of societal challenges and strategic aspects when prioritizing research infrastructure. That is broadening of RFI and so on. But remember then that first, Vetenskapsrådet should be given a larger responsibility, and then it should be transferred into this new agency. So my more personal take on this is that I think it could be a good idea to have a permanent forskningsberedning. But I don't think it's a good idea to involve the politicians in that group. I think the politicians need to have a thorough material to work with. I think it will be problematic for politicians to actually engage in the actual formatting of this landscape. They are good politicians usually, but they do politics. And I think long-term engagement in research infrastructure really is that we shouldn't have so much politics in it. So that's my take on that. And not only that, I work presently at VR, but I think a new agency, as it is described in the inquiry, is also, I think, problematic, and I think basically unnecessary. I think a new agency could have been necessary if the inquiry also had suggested that the organization of large infrastructure should be different and the ownership of them should be different. Then we needed another way of handling it from the government side. If it's only funding, I find that it is kind of, well, solving a problem. There is, of course, always problem in funding things, but I think they will create more problem than they actually would solve with a new agency. So. And then, of course, there is one suggestion that I think most people and organizations stand behind in the investigation, and that is a suggestion of actually creating a new agency for digital research infrastructure. And that is very much based on the proposition that was handed in by the Research Council and by the Swedish University in 2020. And I think that will have indirect impact on, not so much perhaps on ESS, because you have your own solution, but on MAX IV and have another partner to work with. But partly it will surely affect ESS as well. So, I will conclude. I think in the short run, the inquiry will mean no larger changes for either MAX IV or for ESS. I think it will be business as usual. In the longer run, maybe some changes, but I would say that, like a contradiction in terms, that is a very strong maybe. So, thank you. So, questions? Otherwise, we move on. Okay. Then we have Mårten Berg from Vinnova, who will present part of the Vinnova's government commission.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Sounds like it. So, here's the clicker. Perfect. All right. So I'm here to give you a status update on the National Teknikparksfunktion. Sorry, there's not a good translation. So otherwise it would be in English, but we use that word. So an overall aim of the government is to establish an internationally leading research milieu with ESS and MAX IV as pillars. And back in 2019, Vinnova received a governmental commission regarding efforts to strengthen parts of the Swedish research infrastructure ecosystem. And the resulting report, as well as the referral statements from more than 30 organizations, is a ground for the current governmental commission from April in this year, where Vinnova is now tasked with establishing this national Teknikparksfunktion. The function shall support digital as well as physical meetings between different actors and stimulate new networks, research, education, and innovation. It shall be neutral and an inclusive arena that facilitate and promote the utilization of ESS and MAX IV. Further, for Sweden to be a leading knowledge nation, the activities should be nationally relevant around the country and attract international collaboration. Key partners for Vinnova to include in this commission are specified as Science Builder Scandinavia, the project consortia Big Science Sweden, RISE, and the University Reference Group for Research Infrastructures, called URFI, which represents 10 universities, as well as representatives from SUHF, who represent all the other Swedish higher education institutions. Vinnova also included ESS and MAX IV in this group. But since May, a dialogue has taken place with the key partners, as well as several other organizations that contributed with the referral statements back in 2020. And in late September, the key partners received a suggested layout from Vinnova as a starting point for further investigative work. Their feedback was returned to Vinnova the day before yesterday and is currently in review. With the suggested layout, Vinnova aimed to establish an initial framework with well-defined starting conditions for the final purpose and activities for the National Teknikpark Synchrotron. We believe that the layout was necessary in order to be able to further embrace all the perspectives and needs from this large and diverse ecosystem. Important to remember is that the suggested layout regards a framework which complements the existing ecosystem, does not compete with any existing type of resource in any sector, and in short, is to be seen as a formalized collaboration platform that currently address several dimensions and also connect with already funded initiatives. If we move forward with the investigative project, in line with the context of this frame I've just mentioned, Vinnova has suggested to increase the budget compared to the current commission, allowing for a more detailed test of operations and final investigation. The end date of that funding will then also be able to extend to 2023. Next one. So right. So the current suggested layout, I'll give you a brief overview. First of all, the name Teknikpark Synchrotron will be changed to better reflect the chosen functions and activities. Some physical office space and conference space will be placed in the Science Village area. However, the function will be characterized by a web portal where the main purpose is to show the capacities and skills available at different organizations and platforms, and thus provide a neutral matchmaking arena without the requirement for payment, membership, or other similar structures. A well-developed web portal is an internationally attractive format. All functions are also expected to be connected to relevant international resources, capabilities, and skills. The function will, of course, strive to strengthen relevant international relations, especially and maybe initially the Lund-Hamburg connections with complementary facilities. Also, a national node structure divided into 7 regions connect regional need owners and research and innovation support actors with the chosen functions and also visualize relevant local resources. And here you can see the suggested nodes with the borders following the regional lines. And here we go. The function will facilitate collaboration and synergies regarding both upstream and downstream aspects, addressing the industrial aspects while also stressing the research communities in their own R&D as intermediate support as developers. The need for these to build strong collaborations between different disciplines as well as organizations. And here you can see the sketch of the suggested layout. And based on all these perspectives, we suggest a structure very simplified as 3 main sectors: downstream, skills and capabilities, and upstream. And upstream is the current upstream is the current project Big Science Sweden, which also includes an ILO function, the ILO function. These 3 sectors, of course, where relevant, will collaborate closely with each other. And the central office steering function would contribute with formal coordination efforts. The sectors would also connect to relevant organizations and already funded initiatives in the system, both independently and throughout the regional nodes. With 7 national nodes that cover all regions in Sweden, we add a dimension that both allow separate regional platforms and aid the visibility of local lab-based research infrastructures of relevance for material engineering and life sciences. The sector you can see here, skills and capacities, stands for coordination efforts for formalized collaboration arenas with focus on, for example, technology, methods, software development, education, and international attractiveness. But also allowing synergies throughout the collaborations regarding skills and resources. Here, Vinnova sketched on a grouping of 3 different types of networks for collaboration regarding utilization of neutron and photon-based technologies, local lab-based research infrastructures for relevance for material engineering and life sciences, and advanced technology environments in line with the Big Science Sweden direction. And here on this last slide, you can see that this function is supposed to connect with many different organizations, infrastructures, environments, and initiatives. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Mårten. And we look forward to see the future development of this teknikparksfunktion. So anyway, Marjolein, Thunnissen, you're welcome to inform us about Prisma.
Thank you.
Prismas.
Prismas, not to get confused.
I realize now that this will cause a lot of confusion.
Yes, we know. Thank you very much. I'm really, really happy that I'm standing here able to present this proposal. It's only a proposal, but I think it's a very positive thing that we have been working with. If I could get the slides, please. Thanks. So this is really a proposal that we are working with, and we is a group from the University Reference Group of MAX IV. So it's a group of people from MAX IV and the Swedish universities. And really what we want to build is a strong network surrounding MAX IV, getting the gateway environments that are available in the whole of Sweden better connected to MAX IV, and very importantly to heighten collaboration and possibilities of staff at MAX IV and staff at the Swedish academia to really build MAX IV further together. If I can have the next slide. Yeah, and I mean, we have as a proposal that this is called Prisma's PhD Research and Innovation in Synchrotron Methods and Applications. And I'm sorry we put an S behind it to make it slightly different. If I can get the next slide. Oh no, I do that myself. So as I said, this is an effort from our university reference group, and there is a small working group. And as you can see, there are people from from different Swedish institutes and universities that helped together with us at MAX IV to really develop this program. And I should also give one shout out, and that is to Selma, who is sitting there, because she has been crucial for doing this. So I want that off the table first. And what we have been doing is really developing the research program, thinking about what the focus should be, but also looking at the financial opportunities, and then of course the coordination and the writing. And looking at the financial opportunities, that was actually a little bit discouraging, but there was one positive thing, and there is an application from the EU where we can actually come in with a program. So that's what we are proposing to do. So what we are proposing is a PhD co-fund program that would be up to 40 PhD students, let's say about 4 at different universities. And then the purpose would be really to develop MAX IV further together with the Swedish Röntgen community. The program, as it is a co-fund Marie Curie action, it will have a very big focus on training and career development for the people involved. It will be intersectorial, so industry is most welcome, and interdisciplinary. And we know this is one of the big driving corners for MAX IV anyways, and for science, the direction that science is going, and industry also really needs interdisciplinarity to solve their problems. And finally, communication, dissemination, and knowledge transfer will be really, really important in this program. The basis will be a secondment at Max 4, and that secondment is at least 3 months. So all the students will have to have a period at Max 4. The science will be based on the sustainability development goals that the United Nations has formulated, as well as the missions that the EU is working with. And as you can see, this is very broad, but as already pointed out by Ian earlier today, our science background is also broad. So this matches very well with what we are doing. But to keep it together, we also will have horizontal focus areas. So it's almost like a matrix of the science and these these horizontal focus areas. So the horizontal focus areas is instrumentation and method development, really looking, for example, at in situ, in operando, time resolved, or exploiting Max 4 capabilities. Then, of course, data processing, analysis, and modeling will be more and more important, and this can be important for both academia and industry. And finally, we have this drive towards industry and innovation as a third focus area. What is the timeline? We started actually to work probably more than a year ago. And then it was a loose discussion, and it became much more focused after we had identified what was really the financial and what was the best opportunity here. So in June, we have written the first kind of sketch. Now we're having really a lot of meetings with the working group, but also in the last month or so, we have had information to the researchers, because the next step is that we really have to get in proposals for small research projects. This is one of the steps on the timeline in October, and the next one is actually a further workshop at our user meeting. We need letters of intent, and the final application has to go in February. So this is again the timeline, and important here is that we need to have it all ready to go into the EU in February. So what we right now are trying to get is project information from researchers, so that we can really build the catalog of research projects we are going to propose to the EU. And what we need for that is basically 2 A4s, and we have a template available, so I don't go into further details, but the template is available on our website and hopefully easily reachable. As I also said, we will have a further information meeting at our user meeting, and you're still well, not plenty, but there is still time to join, so I would encourage you. The program will be a common introduction and information, and then we will break out to discuss the different goal areas, so that we also can make matches between our beamlines and the academia, and really work on the collaboration. And if you have further questions, I would refer to the website or to email. We will always try to answer and come back. You can also get into contact with your local people, because this is really an effort that we do together. And I think that is one of the very nice aspects of it. This is trying to build the community over the whole of Sweden together. And thank you for listening to me.
I think we have time for questions if you don't run away.
No, I was just wondering if there was time for that. But yes, of course.
I think we have a couple of minutes for that.
Of course.
So we have the timeline for the applications.
Yes.
When do you expect an answer?
Yeah, I mean, the EU is actually quite quick. So normally it takes about 3 months to evaluate. So hopefully before the summer next year we would know. I also would say co-fund is not entirely easy to obtain. And I think this process has learned us really a lot already. So even in working together, we have gained a lot. I also want to say that the ultimate goal would really be to have a national program, that there is a national realization that these kind of programs give an extra value between academia and the facilities, and that we should work to national recognition of such programs. A little bit like sweetness in a way.
Because now the program is it funded by the EU Commission, or?
Yes, it is part of the Marie Curie action.
So there is no Swedish co-funding?
There is Swedish co-funding in the sense that you get only a certain level. Okay. So each of the collaborating institutes will have to collaborate with co-funding, contribute with co-funding. Hence the name co-fund.
Yeah. It could stand for commission funding.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, unfortunately.
Okay, do you have any further questions for Marjolein? Otherwise, I think it's thank you very much, and I think this is really. Now we have a question. Do you involve industry in this stage of Prisma's program development?
Yes, we really hope, because the co-fund, or Marie Curie in general, is really built on interdisciplinarity and intersectoriality. And quite often these programs have secondments. And industry secondments is really one of the big items in this program. So absolutely, yes, we hope to get industry involved, and we are working on that.
So, thank you, Marjolein, and this time, good luck, I think is the right word.
Thank you.
So now we have time for a coffee break, and we will resume 10:45, 10:45. So we have half an hour, and you are with us on the internet. You know what to do. You have to move to the kitchen if you're not already in the kitchen. Thank you. So now we will continue this meeting, and we will have representatives from different industry branches that are involved in MAX IV and ESS and have developed their engagement. So we will hear more from that, and we will have Gert Nilson, Tommy Fallander, Sandra Falck, and Daniel Söderberg on the stage. And we will start with Gert Nilson, who will talk about the small and distinguished subject of metal.
Correct. Thank you, Björn. Yes, my name is Gert Nilson, and I'm from Jernkontoret, the Swedish Steel Producers Association. And I'm very happy to be here to share our thoughts and strategies regarding MAX IV ESS. We also run a strategic innovation program, Metallic Materials. And within that program, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we started a small network project where industry specialists talk to people from the facilities, people from academia, just quietly or at least on a small scale, trying to discuss what are the options, what are the possibilities, what are the opportunities for the metals producing industry at the facilities. This went on for a couple of years. We kept funding it for 2 or 3 years. Now it's still running. It's called MetalBeams, and it's an unfunded network that still meets every 6 months. And let me say that this led to the formulation of 5 or 6 areas where industry realized this is where the facilities can really make a difference. Along came Vinnova and funded trials, simple checks, 50,000 SEK, and for industry to try the facilities. And this was very helpful. We were well prepared because of the discussions. We achieved several of these grants and were able to carry out quite a number of experiments, not just at the facilities in Lund, but also at Petra 3 or in France, in the UK. And so at this point, I would say we have not just discussed, we not just know what we want to do, we have tried it, we have done it, and we have seen what the facilities can do. And we are quite ready to start using the facilities more intensely and with more precise scientific questions. So far, so good, right? The difficult part, the things that we are not yet quite, or let me say this first. The facilities in Lund, at least MAX IV that is in operation, we think offers a very nice environment. It's the people are professional, friendly. On the floor, we get great help. Even if they're on a slightly higher level, could be some antagonism between academia and industry on a discussion level. But on the floor, once the experiments are carried out, we don't see that really. We see just people trying to address an issue, trying to solve a problem, trying to run an experiment. And we firmly believe that once we get more integrated, I'll come back to that, once we get more integrated, we think this will just fade away. What we still have some issues with is that when we talk about the facilities, we talk about the fantastic brightness, we talk about the powerful spallation source, the enormous stream of neutrons that we can accomplish. But what is really interesting is to get an answer to my question. As a representative of the steel industry, I'm very proud because yesterday, Volvo Construction Equipment launched the first vehicle built by fossil-free steel. We think that's quite an accomplishment. And it goes well in hand with what Ian McNulty said when this meeting opened, that what we are here for, what we need to do is to address the flooding, the fires, the heating. We need to address the challenges that the world is exposed to. Unfortunately, those challenges don't allow us to fit a scientific question to a beamline or a particular feature at a particular facility somewhere. These scientific questions, they drop in our hands and they need to be answered. So what we need to make sure is that we have a complete chain from the question to the answer. It doesn't matter if my piece of metal is exposed by a very bright beam or penetrated by very many neutrons. If I can't analyze my data in a sensible way, if my metal piece to begin with was not a good physical representation of the problem I was trying to solve. If I go back to industry and say, this was illuminated by a very bright beam, the person will say, fine, but where is my answer? I need to know how I move on. So there's a very old saying that says, a chain is no stronger than its weakest link. And I think what we need to do to really make those facilities reach their full potential is to address all those things that are not really the beamline, not really the neutron beam. We need to make sure that we can discuss proper physical representations of our. To start with, we need to understand what kind of questions can we answer. I liked very much the presentation about Prisma. I think that was the first time I've heard the whole chain being addressed in a proper way. We need to understand what is the nature of the question I'm trying to answer. What is a proper physical representation that I can bring to the beamline to answer the question? Once I have done my experiment, I also need to be able to analyze my data in a proper, quick, and safe way so that my answer really represents the question I asked. So when I can go on a high level, high quality scale from my questions to my answer, then I can utilize or realize the full potential of the facilities. And so therefore the Prisma talk and also the talk by Vinnova regarding the technique parkfunktion was also very promising, because we know that in order to make the chain complete, many actors, many players have to be involved, and to enable that by providing a platform, we think is to begin with a very good idea. When we talk to industry that deal with future products, future solutions, they say, we often do this together with others. We often do this in big consortia, with academia, with competitors sometimes, and with suppliers. We need to be able to take all of those, to take that group with us when we want to run a test at the facilities. We don't want to say, guys, wait a minute, we need to go to somebody else because we need to run an experiment at ESS. And therefore, it's so important that the proposed function now also accommodates a multitude of players. Because, as I said, we want to bring our friends. We want to continue to answer the questions with the people that also were formulating the question. So, to summarize, we have good experiences from using the facilities. We see that certain things are missing. We see that there's too much focus on the precise uniqueness of the facilities, too little focus on all the pieces that have to be in place to make things work. But the good thing is that I think at this meeting I've heard at least 2 presentations that have been very promising, and I think that we are now on a good track to come to a point when we can say, now the pieces are falling in place. Now we are actually building a chain from start to finish, where we can say, this is the scientific question that the world gives us. This is the question we need to address to produce fossil-free steel, or to make all those things that we have to do to get into a sustainable world. And we can ask those questions, and the chain is complete, and we will get an answer that will take us forward. I think that should be the aim that we should strive for when it comes to MAX IV and ESS, and essentially science as a whole. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gert. And I think we continue the programs, and then we take questions after the presentation. I think this was really interesting and points to the really important thing, that why we have a summit like this is to get this chain of research in place. And I just struck my mind that some years ago I read a review of a Swedish guitar player, and I think the reviewer said that he was able to play more tunes in a minute than anyone else, but he couldn't catch the melody. And I think that's what this is all about. We need to have the whole song, so to say, from start to end. So now I will invite Tommy Nylander to the... Oh, here we are. There you go.
From the backstage, you know.
Oh, don't do that again.
Did I scare you?
And you will go to the subject food.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, can I get a presentation, or I just click here? Here, yeah. So, I would like first to thank my colleagues who have helped me to do this fantastic network that we have created. In particular, Selma, Niklas, Maud, Anna, Milena, Elisabeth. We have been a big collection of Swedish researchers from academia and from industry that have come up with this network. And we call it Northern Lights on Food, because we think food is very important. And we need to understand more of food. We need to transfer from cook and look to fundamental understanding. And when I prepared this talk, I had a look on, you know, you should always have a good quotation. And I find this from Hippocrates: let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. And I think it summarizes how important it is for us to develop the understanding of food. And it also adheres to the UN's agenda when it comes to climate action and sustainability and good health and well-being, because we all want to feel happier with food, and we also want to be healthier with food. Food is a complex matter, and it is as complex as we have heard about metal before. I would argue that food might be even slightly more complicated. It is a hierarchical structure. It's built up from molecules that adhere in various mysterious ways that we do not yet fully understand. And if you look at a simple food system, like a cheese or something like that, it contains everything from atoms into molecule, and it assembles into a very complicated 3D nanostructure that we need to fully unravel on all length scales. And we can see some attempts that has been done using neutrons and X-ray. For instance, here is cooking of meat. You can look at what structural changes happen. And in milk, we have the casein micelle, which we still doesn't fully understand how it captures calcium. I will return a little bit to that. We have the fouling and cleaning, which is when we process this food, it adheres to a metal surface. So again, there is a connection also with the metal industry. What we did, we tried to formulate this network, and we started with a meeting 2017 in December. And it was organized by MaxLab and Copenhagen University. There was Mirja, there was Helene, and there was people from Copenhagen University. And I was told by my boss, Ulf Olsson, to organize this, and we started to organize, and we thought, oh, it will come 40 people or something like that, and Star Hotel. I think we were 87 or something like that, and we crashed all the budget, and I don't know who paid for it. I didn't have to do the dishes, at least. And it was a great success. And 2019, I think, when Selma started at MaxLab, we strengthened the partnership. We involved a lot of industry, and we had the first Northern Light meeting, which were over 100 people. And it was a great success. And it wasn't, we didn't have to force people to come. They come out of interest and out of need. And it really showed the importance of industry, academia, and facilities to work together. And we now have the golden opportunity. We're building these fantastic facilities in Lund. And we have now the capability to really advance the food field. And so I would say this is a golden opportunity for us that we simply cannot miss. And our vision is that it's not only the instruments, but we need to have something in between. And our long-term vision is to create Northern Lights on Food, the European Food Laboratory, to have something concrete. And Nicholas is smiling here because he always pushes for, we need to have a place where we can prepare our food systems to go to MAX IV and ESS to look what's happening in situ when we process food. When we are now changing it into more vegetarian food, we need to understand what is going on. And Niklas and I are always pushing for this extruder where we can look into the process in situ. And with these instruments and with these facilities, we actually have the capability to do that. And there is the opportunity. And I would say that we can identify 6 different items here. We need to improve the fundamental understanding. We need to innovate. We need to innovate. We need the fundamental understanding. But to innovate, we also need to do integrated research. We need to be able to couple material science, food science, medicine, and also nutrition and medicine, and also social science. We need to have our food, prepare our food so people like it. We also have an opportunity in the Scandinavian country because we have a lot of the food innovation comes from the Nordic country. And a lot of the companies that we have, Orkla, Arla, and so on, are co-owned by Scandinavian countries. So there is a lot of opportunity. We need to take that opportunity. We need to be visionary. We need to think forward. How can we make an impact for the world? How can we supply the hungry world with the food of the future? And for that purpose, we need fundamental research. So the opportunity is here, and we have to use it. I was going to show you, when we started our initiative with Nordic Lights on Food, we put the industry together, we put the academia together. We said, come up with some projects for us. And I think we resulted in 40 or 50 different projects. And I have tried to summarize some of them here. And you can see they all contain a similar component. But as I said to you before, they are put together in a different way. And this is the challenge. How can we design structures that have a particular nutritional value, and how can we better use the plant-based raw material? And this goes also into the more animal-based food. I mean, for instance, if you look at the fishing industry, when you buy this square fish, that you in the package, either is sent to China to be rinsed off, or you do it in a factory and lose half of the material. And here we have an opportunity also to study this system. We need to understand the seed structure when we do our vegetarian food. We need, for instance, Oatly, who has done this fantastic process with the oat milk. We need to see how it is organized in the plant, and we need to be able to use the whole plant, not only the goodie parts. And it says minus here, is that correct, or -5? We need also to understand how they interact in the plant. We need to understand how we can clean our surfaces and so on in the process equipment. We need to understand the effect of water on baking and freeze drying and so on to preserve the food. I see I have 6 minutes. I will give you a very short example. I'm a researcher, and you know, researcher give them 5 minutes and they start to talk about a pet product. So that's what I'm going to do for 1 minute. When I was a kid, there was guys coming to, there was an old man, I remember, he had a very red face, very big around, looked like a cheese, and he came to talk about milk and ask us small kids on the countryside in Holland to drink more milk. That was the purpose. And he was so fascinating, this guy, I still remember him. And I think he triggered me to do science, actually, in his indirect and rather farmer-like way. But he was so happy and looked so enthusiastic about studying these systems. And the secret with the milk, which we also need to imitate in this plant-based product, is that it can deliver calcium phosphate. So the bone grows, we get strong legs. And also nowadays, for the elderly population, it's important to strengthen the bone. But if you would take away the protein, the special protein, the secret protein in milk, all the calcium phosphate will be a stone. It will be like drinking a slurry of stones. And that's not very fun, is it? So the nature has divided us with a very advanced way to capture, to sequester this calcium phosphate. And it sequesters it in an amorphous way. So it makes calcium phosphate deposit on solid matter, but it prevents it to go out in our blood vessel. And this is something we have studied using neutrons and X-ray, and that's how we know that this is the mechanism. It's not only milk, there's several other. There's a protein called osteopontin that I especially have been involved in this study here. And that acts to regulate this delicate balance and calcium. And we know how it works thanks to neutrons and X-ray. And this shows that if you have this osteopontin, it has 3 little dots on its structure, and it makes it form the calcium phosphate nanoclusters of a certain size. If you take the same from casein, for instance, it's smaller because it has 1 of these little dots. And it's more sophisticated than that because it's like what they call a core shell. It's like a ball. And the interior you look at with X-ray because it's very sensitive for the crystal structure. And the outer you look at with the neutrons because it's sensitive for the shell. So this shows that by combining these two, you can really gain some new fundamental understanding. And our challenge today is, can we do the same with plants? And we are working on that. And this is something which we need to further study. And there are a lot of these different problems that we actually can solve, where there is an interface between health and food, and also functionality. Because if this process goes wrong, which it does if we heat milk too much, it sticks on the surface. So there is a lot of things we can do and explore. And we are very excited about it. And our vision is to build Northern Lights on Food, the European food laboratory. And we think of it, we have already located a little spot here where we want to be, where Nicholas and I will be mucking around with our extruder. And we also would like to have it as a way where people can prepare their sample for food, for these 2 facilities. Because we have all, as neutron and X-ray science, we all smuggle our sample in the suitcase with the ice cubes and things like that. And sometimes they go wrong and sometimes not. We want to have a place where we can have a couple of days. We can sit there in peace and quiet and prepare them and work together and meet other people and so on. So we think of the physical place. And this should be complementary, not competitive. We should have a meeting place where we work together and do fantastic things together. And with these words, I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tommy. And when you start to talk about research, it's always getting interesting, and even milk. So I will welcome then Sandra Falck, of course, to the stage. And you will talk about life science.
Yes, thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's see if my slides are also appearing. Or do I just click them? Yes, thank you. So my name is Sandra Falck, and I'm currently head of operations and lead the external relations team at SciLifeLab. And today I'm here to talk to you about InfraLife. So InfraLife is a joint project in life sciences between the large-scale research infrastructures MAX IV, ESS, and SciLifeLab. And we also have the industry organizations LEAF and Sweden Bio as partners in the project. And included today are also the strategic innovation programs, SciLife and MedTech for Health, as well as Swedish MedTech. So InfraLife has just been launched this year with funding from the Research Council through the Accessibility to Research Infrastructure grant, and it's thus in its starting phase. And the idea is very much to be inclusive and to build on existing initiatives and structures and be the hub that brings together stakeholders, identifies synergies and drives joint efforts with the overall mission to improve knowledge and availability of research infrastructure and make it accessible to life science researchers in academia, industry, and healthcare. So why InfraLife? MAX IV, ESS, and SciLifeLab represent Sweden's largest investments in research infrastructure to date. And life science is a research area of great importance for Sweden and of significant emphasis at each facility. And there's also considerable national interest in identifying current and creating new synergies between the technologies and tools provided at ESS, MAX IV, and SciLifeLab. Also, the National Life Science Strategy clearly underlines the importance of the large-scale research infrastructures for Swedish life science in general. And we need to work together to deliver on the expectations and meet the needs from different sectors. So thus the rationale behind the project is that we have so much to gain by closer interactions between the infrastructures. And the infrastructures do differ in many aspects, both with regards to technologies offered, but also with regards to organizational structure, and so on. But we share many common goals and a joint ambition to leverage the potential, looking to reach a deeper understanding of each other and to identify the real synergies and joint opportunities to be explored further, to increase national and international awareness of the capabilities the infrastructures provide, and to increase utility and collaboration with other sectors, that is industry and healthcare, as well as towards innovation and translation, and to engage Swedish organizations' participation in technology development and increase the potential application areas of each infrastructure. So SciLifeLab is a national infrastructure dedicated to life sciences, considering life science in the broader meaning of the word, so beyond human health, also towards environment and biodiversity. And SciLifeLab offers a vast array of technologies in molecular biosciences with some 40 units, including different omics, single-cell biology, chemical biology, drug discovery, bioinformatics, and so on, making it possible to study life from the atom scale to entire ecosystems. And MAX IV and ESS do not need an introduction in this forum, but of course the technologies offered by the beamlines bring a whole other dimension to the kinds of questions that can be posed and what can be studied. From the technological angle, the immediate synergies lie primarily in the scope of structural biology and imaging, But the aim of InfraLife is also to have a more thematic, challenge-driven approach towards gathering stakeholders around joint grand challenges in the field of life science. And this is perhaps a bit of a busy slide, but squeezing the InfraLife project concept into one picture. An emphasis is really on the hub in the middle, which consists of the 2 full-time project managers that we've been able to recruit with the VR-funded project. Elin Jonsson is with us online from Lund, and Josephine is here today on site. And they have been active in the project since June this year, and form a tight unit with a daily dialogue, building a close bridge between the infrastructures. And also the project group with representatives from the industry office at MAX IV, from ESS, and from the external relations office at SciLifeLab, meet on a weekly basis. And the larger group, including the industry organizations, also meets regularly. And the steering group meets a couple of times per year, or that's the plan. As mentioned, we have just been starting up. But the point really being that the regular dialogue, as well as the dedicated resources, are crucial for getting a joint initiative like this off the ground with real actions. And we're indeed very happy to have a close dialogue with the industry organizations, since it's very much in the aim of InfraLife to not only engage the academic community, but also the industrial life science sector, as well as healthcare. So this is a valuable link to the private sector towards understanding the needs and developing structures that will facilitate interaction. So with regards to the project aims, we see the tighter dialogue as a great way to share knowledge and best practices internally at different levels, both between the scientists active at the infrastructures, as well as between the industry offices with regards to questions concerning increased interactions with non-academic partners. And we're currently planning the first course within the scope of InfraLife, which will be done jointly with the integrated structural biology platform at SciLifeLab, which includes MAX IV and ESS in its extended management group, and shares the joint ambition to bring the structural biology field together. And as a grand challenge, we've focused first on antimicrobial resistance and had a first small workshop in June on this topic, and are now planning follow-up activities, as well as also considering other thematic areas to engage in, to exemplify the potential offered by the infrastructures with regards to tackling challenges within the life science sector. And the facilitated and coordinated access, as well as data, are broad questions of general nature, with challenges and opportunities that concern us all, and where we see the benefit in not working in silos towards this. And last but not least, it's of course about the people. It's not trivial to bring together many stakeholders, manage sometimes diverging incentives and goals, to identify the joint sweet spots, align and support the push forward. And also to balance the overarching strategic planning with concrete actions. We need to start somewhere, to learn, to modify, adapt and evolve. And we're very happy to have the dedicated full-time project managers working with us on this, and together with the project groups and our partners develop this further during the coming years. And we also invite all interested to get in touch, to engage and bring forward your standing point and the needs or solutions you see would be relevant to take into consideration. And InfraLife has a dedicated web page and a LinkedIn page, so follow us and engage and be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I think it's really interesting to see how the big infrastructure in Sweden are coming together. And I think this is an important step and really points out the future road to go. So hopefully we will come back to this issue later, but now we have the final speaker in this session, and that's Daniel Söderberg, who will talk about forest and raw materials.
Yes, thank you. That was the correct way up. So my name is Daniel Söderberg. I guess my slides will come up. I'm working at KTH with forest-based materials, and specifically processes is what I like. And I will start this by presenting where we are from the forest industry perspective. And I can't start without starting with Treesearch, which is something we start to build up, I think it's 7 years ago, almost exactly. So Treesearch is aimed at forest-based materials. It is a platform. I will come a little bit to what that is. So the intent with Treesearch is competence. So this was started by an industry group. And the industry group actually reacted to something that was started in 2009. And that was the Wallenberg Wood Science Center that was started by the Knut Nalles Wallenberg Foundation. And that was started with the intent of developing competence in the area of materials from forest-based resources. And there was one very strong requirement that you have to do new stuff. You have to learn new techniques. You have to look what the world is doing around you. It's not about making a stronger paper only. So a lot of new materials went into this. And the industry opened up and saw that, oh, this seems to be fascinating. We want to be involved. So they started a process on how can you build something that is national, that is incorporating what Wallenberg Wood Science Center is doing, what is everyone else doing in Sweden on the topic. And therefore we have Treesearch. It's a platform set up with a lot of partners today. We were fewer in the beginning. Major fundings have been from the industry partners and from Bioinnovation, the innovation program, strategic innovation program by Vinnova. And we have a continued funding now for 2 years in that. And platform, it's interesting, what is a platform? Why do I say platform, not center? And the point is that Treesearch, we do not fund specifically research. What we do is try to get people to collaborate. And we are supporting projects with a lot of things. Meeting points, we had that, and so I think it's very similar to what Sandra showed us. We have meeting points. We are also supporting with PhD education courses that are national, so everyone that is studying in the field can attend these courses. There is no cost. We're also, which is kind of interesting, supporting research infrastructure. So what do? We have actually set up a system where you can have access to the partners a little bit more expensive and hard to use research infrastructures, microscopy, NMR, and so on. And that has been extreme success. It helps my PhD student to make a good TEM, transmission electron microscopy image, without having to learn for 6 months or taking a course to be able to do it himself or herself. It makes it possible to make high-quality research fairly simple and efficiently. So that was part of the research infrastructure. And then we, of course, have one more thing, and that is something called FORMAX. So we have, within Treesearch, we are involved with something called FORMAX, and 4 is for forest. I think that's not too far-fetched. And MAX, I think, is self-explaining. And it's a beamline that is actually initiated by, again, Knut Nalles Wallenberg Foundation. So FORMAX is something that was set up as an initial funding by Knut Nalles Wallenberg Foundation for the construction of the beamline, with one requirement, and that is that industry covers the operations. So that is what we're doing today. We're waiting on it to come online. It will start commissioning next year. And we are seeing then that this is a possibility to bring the forest industry into this sector of using advanced characterization techniques. And it's not about colliding cellulose. in a circular ring, right? That was one of the early responses when we tried to, I should say that we tried to sell it actually, is what we're not interested in colliding atoms. That's not what we're doing. We're using these to develop new possibilities. And I try to illustrate why this is interesting and why I'm working with this and I'm interested in this topic as well. And what's in it for this? And this is not for drinking. I'm planning to do this. And assume that you're students now in a class. I mean, some activity, please. What am I doing? I'm trying to make cellulose. That is what nature does. I'm exhaling carbon dioxide into water. And by some means, nature makes that into cellulose. It's a material. It has fantastic properties. We are quite aware of it. And now I want everyone who want to participate, it's funnier to participate, to take a piece of the paper you have in front of you. And unfortunately, I'm not that bright that you can use me. But there is a light behind you. So if you look through the paper like this, and ignore the printed lines, because I'm not interested in those, and you see a structure behind, that is pulp fibers. So this material, which is a kind of a large material in the world, it's about 400 million tons produced of packaging and paper materials during the year. About 1/4 is virgin. That means that it comes from a resource and becomes a biological resource and becomes this paper. And why is this interesting as a material? Yes, it's constituted of fibers. So you have to do the second part. You have to tear it apart now. Okay? And you look at the edge of this one, and you see small things sticking out. That's the wood pulp fiber. It's like 1 millimeter long, 20 micrometer wide. You have like 10 million for a gram. Nature makes these, water, carbon dioxide. It has super good performance. I mean, if you take one of these small fibers, it's not on the level of carbon fiber, but it's good as glass fibers by itself. And why is it more amazing? We actually don't know what nature really does. We can't synthesize this, so that's actually a challenge. We can extract it when we make pulp. That is a process that we are actually studying today and starting to use this type of equipment with, because it's a super efficient process, but it still has challenges from, maybe I could put it a green chemistry perspective and energy consumption. But these fibers, why do they bond together? Because that's one of the secrets of this material. You don't need to use a glue. You only need to dry it. So if you successfully extract your pulp fibers from wood or any other plant that has cellulose fibers, and you make a paper and dry it, it will stick together. No glue. We don't know why. I think it's an interesting perspective. We have a 400 million ton per year industry, and we can't even agree, I would say. Agree is a better word for not knowing. We can't agree on why they are bonding together. And of course, if we knew that a little bit better, that is something we could manipulate. Manipulate is maybe the wrong word in this perspective, but we could use it. And it's already recyclable, but you can increase the recycling rate if you knew even better how to handle the bonds between cellulosic fibers. Recycling rates are today, Torgny from the forest industry, is about 60 to 70%. That can be enhanced a lot. But you need to start to understand what happens on the nano and micro scale. This will not be understood by just making hand sheets and just guessing what's happening by indirect measurements. The ability of using X-rays or neutrons give us a possibility to probe interactions on the scale that is relevant for this knowledge. So that's why we're interested in the bond formation. But of course, you can do other things. And I would say that cellulose is like a cool Lego system. And then the pulp fibers are the big Lego parts, but there are small also. So if you do it properly, you can take this cellulose and you can take this fiber that was 1 millimeter long about and 20 micrometers in diameter. You can take it and you can take apart the smallest constituent, which is the nanocellulose fiber. And that is what nature makes, which we don't really understand. But that small nanoscale fiber has super properties. It's like carbon fiber properties, these nanoscale fibers. And by doing things properly, as you saw in the movie, you can actually extract them from wood pulp. And one fiber that was like 10 million per gram gives you about 1 million nanofibrils, that we call them. And if you use them properly, you can actually start to make materials. But I want to throw in one thing of the movie you saw, and that is, we see from Treesearch that this is a possibility with using infrastructure, access, scientific to learn new things with industry interested. But we all see the possibility of using other infrastructures. So this now I throw up, even though this is about ESS and MAX IV, I think that will be excellent with an access program for academia to scale up facilities so you can start to do fundamental engineering science. On the same way of you're getting access to ESS and MAX IV. So if we want industry to proprietary use ESS and MAX IV, I think it's a good world of if we in academia could use, for example, RISE scale-up infrastructure in the same way as we would use MAX IV and ESS. So that was just throwing out a dog bone. And my personal experience is that if you do this properly and you start to think about what you can do, you can start to develop totally new material concepts that are bio-based, green chemistry. They give performance on the level of what you have today with other materials that are fossil-based, or sometimes not even possible to handle afterlife, because you just have to dig them down in the ground. And this is then a starting point is that we can combine the understanding from an industrial point of view of what happens in a paper-making process, which is my background. And suddenly when you work with nanoscale materials, the new capabilities that we have, for example, with MAX IV and will have with ESS, you can combine these and start to develop new materials, and specifically the processes. So what you saw on the slide, the movie before, this should work like this. This is studying making nanocellulose in situ in Hamburg, though, 2017. So we're seeing the process of making nanocellulose. You can actually study the kind of industrial process that we have today. Even though what you see here is the gel, which is nanocellulose, but the possibility we have is, by doing this, we can see what happens inside the homogenizer that is disintegrating the pulp. So this in situ capability that we have in MAX IV is super critical if you want to do this thing. So I think it's something that we will use within the 4MAX consortium a lot. And I think that that is what ESS will bring to the table. The capability of going to the dynamic time-dependent studies. So this is what we see from I lost the time there, so now I guess that I have about 2 hours. There's no behind here. I have 5 minutes more now. So we're doing this together. We see a lot of possibilities. We're doing pulping in situ, so we can even take, if you're making wood pulp today, you build a new production site, it's for like 1 million tons. We have scaled it down a little bit to a system which looks at a little bit piece of wood that is 1 square or 1 cube millimeter. It's a little bit smaller, but you can do the same things. You can copy the process in situ, in the synchrotron, and start to look at kinetics, structural changes during the pulping process, and everything is aimed at increasing efficiency. So we are doing quite a lot on the starting projects and trying to get industry involved. So we have gotten some of the Vinnova projects into this, studying what can you do. We are slowly teaching the industry what they can do, but I think that the main component that we should discuss is also competence as people. Because I don't think that the easiest way is to tell industry to use something today. What we know is that if we educate, for example, PhD students today or postdocs, when they go out in industry and have these abilities, we will in 5 years see a totally different need. So the best way of getting industry involved will be to educate young people and get them employed in the industry, because they will come back. They will want to have these tools that we provide. So we're trying to do our best. We're trying to get as many projects running using these type of facilities. We are a little bit weak on the neutron side, and that's part because we still have to wait, Andreas, I think, a little bit. But there are other sources around the world. As I said, we have a big project on IV-Max, trying to get a user community around that beamline, which is a little bit of a challenge. And with some luck, we will be also one of the strongest users in the future of ESS. And we are actually, I just want to point out, involved in this Saga proposal that was presented from ESS, where we actually see the possibility of using neutrons to study thin films and moisture transport, for example, in barriers. So with that, I've tried to give an overview of why we're interested in this. And industry is still a little bit hesitant because everyone doesn't know what it's all about. But as I said, in 5 years, they will all love it. Good.
An excellent conclusion. And also it's good to go home today and realize we don't understand the milk and we don't understand the paper. So that's good. So I invite you all back to the stage, and we are happy to ask some questions and from the audience. Otherwise, I will ask you all to very short. I mean, they do this on television all the time. They ask people to give a short answer to a difficult question, and they never give a short answer to the difficult question. But we'll give it a try. So what is the main insight you have gained of setting up these collaborations? Which, if you want to say, give an advice to someone that will,
I move here.
I move here.
Yeah.
And you can move here.
That was my point.
Sorry. That's what. Yes. So, and whose glass? So the main insight, if you want to advise someone that will go into cooperation with these facilities and utilizing these research opportunities, what would that advice be?
I think to work together, to join, I mean, to be together, take contact with your colleagues from other university and work together with industry, and don't forget your own prestige, and work together, sit down and talk to each other. And in our case, we had a lot of help from LINX, Lund Institute of Advanced Neutron and X-ray Science, which really helped us to create this forum where we can meet without prestige and talk and interact and so on. So I think forget your own ego and work together.
Yeah, sure. I think with regards to the different perspectives, of course, it's an old saying, this division between the academic world and the industry world, and I really think that the talking together and forming the research questions and problems together also, it's not, I mean, we have the proprietary use and that should be one way in, but really to engage in the research questions together with different sectors is something that we're very much interested in the life science area. Of course, it's also very broad to say life science and the technologies, and you have the medtech industry looks different from the pharma and the small companies and the big companies. So it's a very broad, and it needs to be tailor-made for different parts.
Yeah, of course. So you have to.
I agree. I think collaboration. Start talking to people, and you will get the help that you need. I think that's. Don't try and solve everything by yourself. Forget your ego. I thought that was very good advice, so I back that.
Tommy, do you want to
add
something?
I agree with everything, but I also see that My experience is that you have to start with someone knowing, supporting you. I mean, it's like everything else. It's hard to read the book and try to do it yourself, even though we try that from time to time. Oh, you look at YouTube, doesn't work either perfectly. But getting someone to help you to do the first experiment, I think that's super important. And I think that a lot of these PhD schools that has been started, like Swedish, and we say other cases where they're using, you're getting a course and you get hands-on training. And we have seen that related to IV-Max and Treesearch, that sometimes it's actually the PhD student taking the course, doing hands-on training at a facility that sort of realizes what could be done. And of course, the credit can be taken by the supervisor anyway, in the end.
In the end, yeah. But do you think we have the right competence in Sweden, in the companies and in the academia, to actually pursue and develop the cooperation between industry and the facilities? Or do we have to take measures, long-term measures or short-term measures to guarantee that?
I think we have the capability and so on. I was in ILL and I met, I think half the people there were Swedish researchers, and they are active, they are involved, they know their stuff, and if we can work together, if we pool the resources, I'm sure we can do it.
Yep, Gert.
Yeah, many of the techniques that are used are not really new. This is X-ray diffraction was developed 100 years ago, they are just done better. It's not that it's novel to all of us. I would say that we have the capabilities, at least to see what the facilities can do. But then, of course, as I said in my presentation, there's a lot of things that have to happen, and they have to go right. The whole chain has to work. And of course, nobody knows everything, so there you need help. But I'm sure that if we work together, we have the capability, yes.
We also... you can add, yeah?
Yeah, I can add. I think that using all universities is probably the key also. And first of all, it's not like 1% of industry is involved in using the beam lines. It's those that are paying, but the industry is involved in a lot of other stuff around it. So it's the wrong thing to think that it's none. It's quite large. But all universities are working with their local, regional universities, industry, and that is a very strong route into this. So if you can get the university... I think the program by Vinnova is excellent, by the way. The sort of ability why you're funding early researcher you have one that is the experienced user, and then you have someone that is just learning and understanding. So I think that type of program should be enhanced.
We have also a question from online for Tommy, actually. If you can elaborate about how the industrial engagement can look like in the lives of the sector with a few large companies and many smalls.
Yeah. I think this is a challenge, in particular in food industry, which is rather fragmented, and there is some really big ones and some small ones, and I think that's also something we are trying to address within the Northern Lights of Food, to have master classes, to have conferences, and try to actively approach them, to engage them in our work. And often they come via the university, as Daniel said, with the local environment. They come to you, and we try to engage them in this, because some of these small companies are very much innovative, and we shouldn't forget a company like Oatly. It started like a few people working in the experimental hall, and this was how it built up via the university. So I think we can, and they now are very engaged in ESS and MAX also. So I think we can do it, but we have to be active. We have to educate, train, and also to be open and work together.
But listening to what you are saying and many others, it appears, at least to me, that the sort of gap between and maybe there isn't a gap anymore between fundamental research, basic research, and applied research, that becomes more tighter, and the leap between having actually doing something at a very advanced facility like MAX IV or ESS to actually go into manufacturing, that is much smaller today. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, it is. It's smaller. And we have help also of organization. Now I'm thinking of Lund, in the Lund Institute of Advanced Neutron and X-ray Science. They are trying to provide also small companies with the resources in terms of training, involve experts and so on. So I think we are in a better stage today. Of course, we need more money. That's for sure. But we trust you to fix that. But but I mean, there is the capability, and small companies have the bright ideas. They inspire us.
So I take a note on that. But you were discussing earlier the importance of the chain and so on, and you are of actually being present in Lund at the facilities to be able to utilize them, and you are already present at MAX IV. But is SciLifelab to actually develop the collaboration? Do you think that, I mean, you don't have the answer for whole SciLifelab, but do you think there is a need in the future actually to build laboratory and things connected to SciLifelab at site?
And we are actually already today. I mean, the main hub, if you wish, is in Stockholm and in Uppsala, but we are a national infrastructure and have sites elsewhere in Sweden, and are also expanding this mode of working. So I think it's good to have a geographically spread presence, but also in some ways we are a bit different in the sense that it's not usually scientists coming on site to our facilities to do their experiment, but it's more handled by the researchers at the facilities. So it's but for us, I think it's a lot also, regardless, I mean, in the life science sector, regardless if you're from academia, industry, or something else, to really describe that for these types of questions, you should turn to this facility, and for others, it's fine to go here, and what's required of your sample, and what can you if you don't, you have different kinds of users, but the advanced ones that know exactly what technology they want to use, they can come and do their thing. But for the more problem-focused, you should really describe the system in other ways to help.
So I'm turn to Gert, and this is actually also from the remote audience. And I mean, you described the importance of the chain, and I think that's really something to take home. I mean, it's obvious when you but it's also complicated. But if you say, if you look at the chain now, how you perceive it, what's the weakest link? Where do we need to focus if we want to strengthen this chain?
I can't point out the weakest link. What I can say is that the problem is that you don't get attention for issues that might appear mundane, that might appear, but this must have been, this is old technology. Setting up a data analysis that can't, why should we fund that? Why should we fund a mechanical shop that makes samples? Well, because if you don't do that, you cannot feed the sophisticated technology, or you cannot analyze the data. So I think you need to look at things in its context and not as an isolated scientific topic. And that I think is the key. You should fund development of the whole chain, even if each link in the chain is not really top notch or not really novel. They still need to be there. They still need to work.
But it also means that different funders and actors need to actually, in a way, identify
back
this.
out and see the perspective.
Yeah. Mm.
What has to happen for this to work?
So we also have a question from the web for you, Daniel. It's what has been the main challenge for tree research so far?
Almost saying that, explaining what it is, right? One of the biggest challenges is to get this to work, where everyone feels that they're getting something out. And I think that we have tried to operate the platform with a very strong idea that everyone that is involved should at least be able to say that I got something out of it in the end. So it has to be a win for everyone. And then it is, coming back to an earlier, funding is kind of always a challenge.
Okay, but that goes without saying.
That goes without saying, but if sometimes you get the feeling that you build something up, you get support for that, that's fantastic, but suddenly when it's functioning, everyone wants to do something else.
Yeah. I'm completely agree about that. That it's always interesting to build something or start something, but then continue to actually maintain it and develop it to reap the fruits of the earlier investment. That's more difficult. That's less sexy or whatever it is. So I completely agree with that, and I think that's an important take-home message. I had another question. Well, especially when you talk about food research, I mean, utilizing the facilities, I understand, will require more and more of, but that goes for everyone, more and more of multidisciplinary research efforts. And I think also taking care of data analysis and this, and all the spectra around is important. But also if you want to, especially in food, if you want to create something that actually works in society, how do you get that chain? Because it's so culturally and habits and things. So if you actually want to change what people eat,
I think what we can provide the knowledge what you eat. We can provide this food, this composition, this structure is good for you because it works this and that way. We can provide them with knowledge. People want to know what's happening. People have a curiosity. We should enthuse people by the curiosity. So I think that is one way. And also people now question, why is this component there? What is that good for? Do we need an emulsifier? And we can tell them, thanks to the techniques, the knowledge we generate. Knowledge is king.
I'm a sociologist by training, so there is a challenge.
We come to you.
So do we have any questions from the audience? Or you're fully informed? I think this was very good, and I think we have a lot of food for thoughts for this afternoon. And it's been really, I mean, you widen the perspective. And I think it's really important to see also that we actually build these facilities for a reason, not to produce neutrons or photons or whatever it is. That's the tool. We have a reason for it, and we will try to strengthen that. So thank you very much. And well, we carry on the good work. Thank you. So, and now we should have David Edvardsson, who is the Director General at the Ministry of Education and Research. And here he is, and he will give a perspective on MAX IV and ESS. Not, I guess, from a politician's perspective, but from the political sphere perspective. And as I understand the technology now, David, you can't see the audience.
That's right, Björn, but I can see you, and I hope that you all can hear me. Can I just get a green light on that?
We can all hear you, and you can see me, and I understand that that is the way it is. So I will do my best, and David, to stay focused for 10 minutes.
That's good to hear. Thank you very much, Björn, and thank you very much for that short introduction. And I can also say that I'm not going to give this speech from a user perspective either. So it's a more general reflection then. First of all, dear colleagues, I feel very happy to join you, although digitally today, at this event, and to address you all on behalf of State Secretary Stefan Engström, who unfortunately couldn't join you today, and he offers his apologies for this. As Björn said, my name is David Edvardsson. I'm head of the research policy unit here at the Ministry of Education and Research in Stockholm. It is really inspiring to be able to join you, and even though I don't see you, I see Björn, and that is also inspiring, of course. I want to start by thanking the organizers for all their hard work in bringing this important event in place. Today's event on how to sort of boost the use of MAX IV and ESS is very timely, as you all know. ESS is rapidly progressing towards operation, and science activities at MAX IV has of course been ongoing for quite some time. So the work you do here today is really important. And what I would like to say is just a few words from perhaps a slightly broader or at least a different perspective, maybe. This last year, the COVID-19 pandemic has made it very clear to all of us that we need the best tools and infrastructures to handle global and societal challenges. New knowledge has been crucial in efforts developing new vaccines, which have been needed in order to take us out of this crisis. And without international collaboration, this would not have been possible at all. But the international collaboration in research today is strong, and it is growing stronger. And without continued investments in education and research, we risk putting Swedish competitiveness and our ability to innovate at stake. Here, facilities like ESS, MAX IV, and other national infrastructures here in Sweden will help Sweden play an important role, and will help Sweden to continue to be an attractive partner in scientific collaborations, and will also serve as, I would like to say, natural platforms for global collaboration between academia and industry. And I mean, this collaboration is something I understand that you discussed today, and how to actually broaden and involve several actors into future uses at these facilities. What ESS and MAX IV do is that they combine both excellence and international collaboration in one package. And this can be boosted even further if results generated at these facilities can be accessible to the broader society, and that not only experts in neutron and synchrotron technology can obtain access to these facilities. Also, the importance in fostering a new generation of users cannot be underestimated. I was really happy to hear that in the end of your panel discussion, that we should not focus about neutrons and synchrotron, but because these are just the tools. It is the questions and the research projects which are the main focus here. So that was really good to hear. Let me briefly now turn to a European perspective. the European Union's new framework program for research and innovation, Horizon Europe, which I think most of you know, will of course be a key instrument for the EU in meeting these grand challenges and to achieve the sustainable development goals in Agenda 2030. This program shall contribute to green growth and competitiveness, and sets clear global goals for fighting climate change and working towards a sustainable development. But to make this program successful, we need all excellent available resources like ESS, like MAX IV, and other facilities in Sweden and across Europe, and also the competence across the whole EU. This framework program is strategically important for Swedish research and innovation. The government therefore recently launched a strategy to strengthen Swedish participation in the program. And here the aim is to maximize the benefit to Swedish research and innovation, and to also enable synergies and interaction between actors at national and EU level. The strategy contains the Swedish government's goals for participation in Horizon Europe. One such goal is that scientists in Sweden should have easy access to and be able to benefit from top-class research infrastructures in Sweden as well as in other member states. The strategy also proposes how both funding agencies and universities can contribute to achieving these goals. For example, obstacles to use research infrastructures should be minimized and lack of advanced user support counteracted through competence-enhancing initiatives. And these are topics that connect well to the discussions you're having today. So to sum up, cross and multidisciplinary research will be key to our ability to tackle the complex societal challenges that we are facing today. And ESS and MAX IV are large-scale infrastructures that will enable just that, groundbreaking science in life science, in material sciences, engineering, and many more areas. But their use has to be optimized. The full potential of these facilities, the full potential of their capabilities need to be exploited. Now is really a golden opportunity to start to develop these strategies that will help Swedish stakeholders to be in the front line in using ESS and MAX IV. And your discussions here today are key in reaching that. We need Swedish users to be among those top ones in utilizing existing instruments, developing future instruments at these facilities. So let's look ahead. In 2023, it is time for Sweden to take the presidency of the Council of the EU. This is a great opportunity for us to show the rest of Europe what has been achieved in Sweden. And I personally hope that by then, we will be able to show that Sweden is hosting several competitive and successful research infrastructures. Two of these are the main topic today, but several others have been mentioned during the day here today and exist, of course, here in Sweden. So finally, I would just now like to wish you continued interesting discussions during lunch and this afternoon's workshop. So the best of luck from the Department of Ministry and Education here in Stockholm. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think it was very much in line what's been discussed here earlier today, what you said, and emphasize also the commitment from the government. I would particularly underline what you're saying about the international collaboration and the importance of that, and that we need to strengthen that. And I think there is another aspect which we haven't really discussed today, and I think but comes from what you say, and that is also that we can use this facility to attract competence to Sweden and strengthen Sweden's research. And we haven't really touched about that, but I think that's an important part of it as well. But thank you very much, David. So.
Thank you, and goodbye.
So, now we've had plenty of food for thought for the afternoon session, and then I think it's time for real food. And those of you who participate remotely, please be back in your designated Zoom rooms at 1 o'clock, 13 sharp. And you will find those links somewhere on your screen, as I understand it. But you see the screen, I don't see the screen. So that's the good. And then we will work in different groups, and you know from the tables where you are, who you will collaborate with. And then we will resume again 15:30, and we will have a short, what's called a sammanfattning, condensed reporting summary. Thank you. Summary of the discussions, and the discussions will also be done, summarized in print and published later. But thank you for this time, and we go for lunch, which I really don't know where. But could it be there? Okay. So, and we see each other in the groups in 1 hour. Thank you. So, welcome back. And I trust you have had good discussions at your tables on these small and relatively simple issues that you've been asked to, to discuss. We will present, or rather, Johan Holmberg, Senior Advisor at the Research Council, will present on a short report.
A brief.
A brief.
I have to modulate my voice here.
Of
very strong.
Of the discussions.
Yes.
So we start there, and I hope that everyone that is online is also with us now. And so.
Okay.
No more. The floor is yours.
Perfect.
I'm looking forward to this simple task.
I was asked to do the wrapping up here and to bring up here. There was about 150 answers or reflections in Menti that came in. So Tutti has been doing a great job of trying to get them together. So let's see if we can get there. We have a brief summary from the workshop, and I'm working with Mikaela. I'm in this ESS MAX IV office, and have been working with ESS and MAX IV for a long time. So this is very nice, but it's been very nice to see everyone here so engaged. And after a long pandemic, I don't know if it's the pandemic effect or being together that is the nice thing here. So we had a question about societal benefits. And quite a few of the comments were that societal benefits is not a very good concept. It's both vague and maybe it pushes away other parts. So we need to push for excellence and focus more on challenges. And the usefulness is not a measure to be used in these contexts. And I can really sign on to that. And one of the problems here is the long lead time between a research result and a societal result, especially if you calculate them in euros or kronor or ören. It takes time, these things. And there need to be fellowships for students at ESS and MAX IV already, and maybe already high school level, and outreach activities. And this is, I think, at least my personal view is I had the opportunity as very young in school to visit an observatory, and that actually made me very happy, and my co-mates also very happy. So I think this is a very good idea. And there must be experimental preparation labs available, and these also needs to be suitable for industrial cooperation. And this is naturally the way to connect people here that is important. We talked also questions about the ecosystem. And here we have a difficult way to pronounce this. It's transdisciplinary thematic cooperation platforms, which I think is a pretty good name for something, but probably the short form will be more useful in the future. But also an important part in Sweden is a big country. These are very so the regional nodes serving the whole country, so everyone can connect. Here it says one-stop shop for potential stakeholders to use these research infrastructures. Actually, this is also for all research infrastructures, but I think it's very important for these single-sited ones. And also, that was brought up during the panel discussion here, the help to design these projects and design the questions that where these fantastic facilities are suitable. I mean, there might be another way to get an answer also. And we have a question on a modern access process and creating additional tracks for selection projects that takes concern on dimensions such as excellent and as sustainability, social and innovational impact. And this is something that I know has from time to time come up in the discussions with both the facilities and the facilities out in Europe. And I think here is a possibility to maybe take a step forward, to learn something new and to try something new. That doesn't mean that it will be a big part of because most of these facilities are heavily based in the peer review system and excellence. Strategies. And here, to evaluate whether ESS and MAX IV is best located under the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation or the Ministry of Education and Research with regard to connection in Swedish competitiveness, etc. These things have been bubbling and ongoing for a long time and discussed, but this is advice. Clarity of the expectations of the different stakeholders. I think that is very important, so that everyone, because it's not just one stakeholder who can serve and help and do things, because there are different areas. Then there is the education part, the Swedish Hercules. We have knowledge and experience of the methods. Teaching experience, cooperation with the facilities is essential. Experience with industry cooperation, good industry connections. And what we are missing is funding and long-term commitment. And, well, I have to turn always to Björn there, at least for the next couple of weeks. I'll turn to him for that question. So I think this is important input that we will take and we will need and we will work with. And the question is, what happens with the answers? And how are we going, with the exception of me making this wrapping up, going to use this? I mean, we are going to publish some sort of summary on the website office for ESS and MAX IV. And there I want to make a little bit publicity for the website. It will develop. Updating the implementation plan. The implementation plan is, here we need to manage the reality and expectations, because the implementation plan is more of a landscape process that everyone understands and sees, and it's not on one party to solve everything and to do everything. But naturally, it will also serve as an input, both the implementation plan that will be updated and these inputs as part of the activity plan for the ESS MAX IV office. And actually, I don't think I have much more. I don't know if we are ready, or do I need to dance or do something stupid up here? At least 15 minutes, yes. So we have, where is the tango? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johan, for this summary, and I'm sure that in the text and in all the input that come from you, we will try to get something together. It actually will be some kind of report from this. And I think during this day has been really interesting discussions. I think we have a lot of input from different parties. And I think also there has been a development in these summits or ESS MAX IV meetings that we've had over the years. And, and we still have a way to go, but this meeting compared to the first one naturally has been more on the point. We have discussed more concrete problem. We have listened to more actions that's been taken, problems that we solved, and involvement that actually is ongoing in the facilities and so on. So I think that is very promising for the future. But still we have a long way to go to utilize these facilities in the best way for Sweden. And I think we really need to do that, because this is really fantastic facilities, giving opportunities to fantastic research and a way for actually strengthening Sweden, not only our research, but also the picture of Sweden abroad, of a country which is in the forefront of technical development, scientific foresight, and so on. So we have to keep up the good work. So, and I think this meeting is one piece of it, and then we have to continue, and I guess we will meet next year again, and after that, but in between, that's when the work has to be done. So with that, I would like to welcome again Darja Isaksson and Sven Stafström. Now they are both, just so they have the equal opportunity, they are both online. So I give the floor to who? Darja.
Thank you. Wow, now I hear myself. Well, what a day it's been. It's been really, really energizing to hear the discussions today and think back on discussions that we had just a few years ago. So I would just, before I leave over to Sven, I'd just say this. We are all aware that big science and research infrastructures open up unprecedented opportunities for groundbreaking new knowledge for human society. And then at the same time, we acknowledge that we are now living in what science calls the decisive decade, that the societal challenges of our time are urgent and existential, and that we need to work together to address them. Therefore, it's very encouraging to notice today how we are all also aware that interdisciplinary research and even transdisciplinary co-creation between academia, industry, and innovative SMEs in utilizing this type of infrastructure also opens up unprecedented opportunities for that knowledge to impact society in ways that we urgently need. For instance, in improving public health, enabling our industries to drive the transformation we need to live within planetary boundaries. Now, we are a big science nation built on our ability to collaborate and co-create. So in order to succeed further, we must continue to act in ways that strengthen the entire chain, as we heard on stage earlier today. A great way to start with it, we also heard, is to collaborate already in education and to dive into formulating the research questions together. And also to drop the ego, to help each other out, and to have dialogues based on real curiosity and commitment to make a difference. So therefore, I'm truly delighted to hear the engagement that we've heard today in working together to build the capacities that we need. And I think that the discussions we've had will surely impact, for instance, Vinnova, in guiding us forward in how we can work together onwards in supporting and creating opportunities for many within food, health, sustainable industry, and naturally in all this big science that will benefit all of humanity. So looking forward for the summary in the documents, and we'll definitely use them at Vinnova and hope the same for you. Thank you.
And I give the floor to Sven then.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me. I fully agree with Darja. It has been a very inspiring day, and I followed it over the internet the whole day, and it has worked really well. So many thanks to Envio for excellent work on the meeting facilities.
I've made also several notes during the day, and I'd like to go through a few of them. So starting with MAX IV, the first presentation by Ian. We know it works super well, the facility, but we know also that there will be new technologies that will become available. And at the same time, as we think about new beamlines, we also have to think about upgrading. And as a financing body, it's something that we have to keep in mind when we make our financing strategies, that there is a need for money also for upgrading in the future. ESS, still under construction, and as it has been mentioned here, Sweden has, of course, particular responsibility as host nation. And we have been working hard over the past couple of years, and I can promise you that we will do that also in the future. Especially, it's the ESS MAX IV office that does all the work. But as Andreas said, the goal is set. So about 5 years from now, we will have the first science coming out. And it's not too far away, and I think it's really exciting. I also must say that it's so nice to hear the presentations about collaboration between industry and academia, and I can see that Darja is also agreeing on this. And I think we discussed that, Darja and I, that if you go back and look two years back from now, the last workshop we had, I think it has been a tremendous progress. And to hear about MetalBeams, Northern Light on food, InfraLife, Treesearch, I mean, very inspiring and a very good job done in the collaboration between industry and academia. And I must also say that what we need is profiling at universities. Sven's strategy is also coming from the university side, and Links, I think, is an excellent example of such a profilation that it will be helpful to build knowledge, which is really needed. And also, I take a note on this, the whole chain, as was mentioned. I think it is very important to think about that there are many parts here. We have to think about already the next generation of scientists, for instance, and there has been a lot of good work in graduate schools on that. And we learned some science of milk and paper, and also a little bit of metals. That's always nice to hear some scientific parts in this kind of workshop. So I enjoyed it very much, and I would like to thank everybody who participated. But let me say a few words to you, Björn. I cannot see you. Yeah, there you are. So Björn, very good job as a moderator. I'm really impressed. I shouldn't be, because I know that everything you do very well. But this might be the last time that you appear officially as Secretary General for Research Infrastructure. So I think maybe we can give all of us, Björn, a large applaud for what he has done today, and also the work he has done.
Thank you, Sven.
Great. And I will say that maybe now when you step down, we will have a very good successor. Lisbeth Olsson from Chalmers will become the new Secretary General starting 1st of November. But maybe we can use you, Björn, in the future as moderator in events. So that's great to know. Yeah. Okay, I think I'll stop here. So thank you very much. And I don't know who is next. Should I give the word back to you, Björn?
You can give it back to me, and I will immediately hand it over to Mikaela, who will wrap this up for us.
See if I'm, yes. So it's been a very exciting day, I think, with many inspiring presentations and discussions that we are looking forward to continue through the year. And of course, we, on behalf of the Office for ESS and MAX IV, we would like to thank you all very, very much for your important contributions. And we are looking forward to see you all on the next summit. But I think now we should also give everyone that's made this day possible, getting the technique to work, getting all of us here, and organizing this event, a big hand. So by this, I would like to thank you all very much. It's been very nice to see everyone in real life. Thank you.